Welcome all. I'm going to try something new here. So far I've mostly done response videos to stupid stuff, or at least people being stupid in my humble opinion. I'm going to try something else now. I'm going to approach the situation from a different angle. And the angle I'm going to choose today is the angle of freedom of speech. I'm going to make a small movie rant, what you want to call it, I don't know, about freedom of speech. Is our freedom of speech threatened? This is probably not the first question I should answer, though, because before we can say whether our freedom of speech is threatened, we need to make clear what our freedom of speech actually is. Okay, so what is freedom of speech? Well, this is a description sort of thing. Freedom of speech is the right to communicate one's opinion and ideas without fear of government retaliation or censorship. Well, then the government is the one that should protect freedom of speech. No, not really, because this is where we go wrong. It started as the government should protect our freedom of speech, but in a way, we all have to protect our freedom of speech. The thing with freedom of speech is if I have a big enough group that can prevent you from saying what you want to say, even though I'm not the government, do you then still have freedom of speech? And therein lies the problem, because this is what we are seeing, and this is how our freedom of speech is currently under threat, not from governments, but from self-censoring groups of individuals. For example, this example I like to call the social justice warriors, who are basically out shouting everyone when they are giving a speech on something they don't want to hear. The no platforming thing we see in universities and in certain groups of people that try to convey ideas and try to limit the reach of ideas they disagree with. Is this a form of censorship? Well, yes, it is. Is it limiting our free speech? I would still say yes, it is. But it's not being done by governments. And in a way, by saying, well, it's only governments that are um, being able to stop people having free speech, then we've lost track of what we as a society have turned into. Because free speech is not something only governments can take away from us. With the social media as it is, and basically leaning heavily on free speech, we have noticed that in this very same social media, free speech is under threat. Not because we're not allowed to say what we want, but because people will do their very best to make sure that we can say whatever we want, but we will not be heard. And this is something that is scary, at least to me. And I think it should be scary to each and every one of us. I was thinking of putting in small pieces of video of meetings being disrupted by people who disagree with the ideas being supported in those meetings. For example, there are old movies of Toronto where student protesters are protesting against someone speaking and they try to prevent people from entering the building. There have been several movies of people speaking in universities where dissenting students press the alarm, for example, the fire alarm, to interrupt or even end the uh, meetings. I've seen this at least once from Milo Yiannopoulos, for example, when people disagree with what he wants to say, therefore they pull the fire alarm, trying to get the people to leave the talks. This is happening a lot. Do I agree with Milo Yiannopoulos? Mm, definitely not on everything. Let's make sure that of that. But I do agree with the fact that he has a right to speak. If you do not want to hear what he has to say, then you can leave. But this is where free speech is under threat because of social justice warriors and feminists and basically everyone who tries to prevent someone else from saying their piece. Freedom of speech is not the right to insult. Don't get me wrong. I do agree about that. But freedom of speech should not be prevented because you find whatever is being said insulting. Offense is taken and not always given. So, at this point in time, we are living in a society where we value free speech a lot, and at the same time, if that's free speech we disagree with, then, well, maybe that speech shouldn't be that free. This is a contradiction. This is a problem we're having in our current society. And I am curious how we will deal with this. The Queen of the Netherlands, well, the former Queen of the Netherlands, once said freedom of speech does not equate the right to offend. And she is right. Freedom of speech isn't about offense, but it can be offensive. So we need to strike a balance. But in case of doubt, I personally am inclined to believe that freedom of speech should go further than what people try to prevent with the right to offend. Don't get me wrong. Do I think people should have a right to offend? No. But should people then say, okay, you offended me, therefore your speech is illegit? No. I live in the Netherlands, and here the book Mein Kampf, which was written by Adolf Hitler, is illegal. There are plenty of Western countries where this book is illegal. Am I a Nazi? No. I don't sympathize with Nazi principles, and I think Hitler was an idiot. But should his book be illegal? No. Because preventing people from saying certain things doesn't mean that these concepts aren't in certain groups. The only thing that can be used to counter free speech is free speech. Because what happens when you start censoring free speech? Well, certain free speech goes underground. Certain dissenting voices, sorry, goes underground. And what happens then is that you get fringe movements. And that is where freedom of speech has died. And if we currently live in a Western society where students at Yale University, sorry, are talking about, well, maybe the First Amendment in America, the one protecting free speech, well, maybe it's past its sell by date. Then I'm sorry. If that's the future of academics, oh my freaking god, what chance do we have? Well, you can't say this because if you say that, it's offensive, and oh no, yeah, that's bad. You can't talk about men rights because it's offensive to female victims. But you can't talk about, um, I don't know, find any subject you want to find. But this is what we're doing. We're currently starting a society, or actually, we're not starting it, it's been going on for a few years already, wherein we're not allowed to say what we want because we might offend someone. And then if someone is offended by whatever we say, they are at full right to bring whatever stupid measure to bear. I mean, if we look at the terrorist attack on the people of Charlie Hebdo, which has happened some time ago now. There are actually people more or less defending the terrorists by saying, well, yeah, but Charlie Hebdo, they made offensive cartoons. And I don't know how many people actually died because of those offensive cartoons. But the terrorists actually killed people. And then we have people proclaiming that free speech is a good thing, but at the same time saying, but Charlie Hebdo shouldn't have made those cartoons. As long as we have major voices in our society that try to censor other voices in our society is losing its ability of free speech. And we are promoting self-censorship. This is, in my humble opinion, not a good thing. Anyway, this is a small rant, and I'll probably do something else like this in the future because I don't know. Seems like this is a subject we do need to discuss because free speech is the basis of our Western society. It's the one thing that the founding fathers of America absolutely saw right. And we're breaking it down because of reasons? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you listened this far, criticism as usual is mostly welcomed. And, well, see you next time.